Hey everyone, I'm Mark de Grasse, and this is Podcast Mark, where we talk about personal development, professional development, and business development in that order, trying to find the intersection of all three, with an emphasis on basically the energy and the emotions that go behind all our decisions in all three aspects. So today I have Scott Cunningham, another one of my digital marketer family. We produced a bunch of courses together, podcasts, shows. I think I probably did more stuff with you than the majority of the thousand of people that I work with. So, how's it going, Scott?
Really good. Yeah, no, Mark, that was incredible working with you on all those courses. I haven't had this opportunity to thank you. So I'm going to do it now on this podcast episode. You've taught me the most out of anybody I've ever seen in terms of mass producing content. Mark is a content machine. So thank you for that, my friend.
What's funny is the stuff that we did, and you were like a perfect example because we did one of my 8-hour shoots where we did like all the course content, then we did a podcast, then we did YouTube videos, then we shot some photography, and then we went and walked around a marketplace to get B-roll. And yeah, I didn't know that there was any other way to do it because I'm like, you're in town. We're gonna take it to the limit.
I was with my partner Simon when we were doing that. We were excited like little children in a candy store because we're like, this guy wants to go do. It's like 6 o'clock. He wants to still go do B-roll. We're like, let's do this. This is amazing. Like, we wish we were producing content to that level. It's usually like short shoot. You're in there for a few hours. We get one thing and we're done. But like you said, we got the course, we got the YouTube videos, we got the podcast episode, we got the B-roll, we got so much in one day. It was amazing.
Oh, well, and the thing is, I always tell people it's not just about like, hey, we did a ton of stuff because you were in town and travel's expensive, which is part of it. The main thing is that you get consistent content because you're doing it all at the same time. And so that kind of goes back to like my central principle of efficiency, where I'm like, hey, as long as you're here, it bugs me when I go to shoots and everybody's like chatting the whole time. Well, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, this is
Not to
costing money.
not to throw anyone under the bus, but your team wanted to all go home. They're exhausted, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
we're still going, and we're like, whoa, this is badass.
Yeah, well, and I'm a little better at working now where I'm like, we don't have to work all the time. But if you're working, work. That's my thing. And then when you're not working, don't work.
Yeah,
Sounds obvious, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about the balance because I think for the longest time we've all been and I think we both grew up with it, the hustle, you got to go, you got to make it, no pain, no gain, just keep going. And now I'm a little older and I'm like that's silly. I don't want to do that. What
so
have
I'm
you
with
been?
you. I'm with you on that. Like I feel the same way, but I also see this debate happening a lot online
Mhm.
about like hustle culture versus balance. I'm pro balance. I'm pro balance. But then I will question is like, but Scott from 15 years ago who's brand new, like you kind of got to earn you have to earn some
Yeah.
stripes. Like it's hard to get the experience. It's hard to build the credibility. It's hard to build the authority, build the relationships, get good at the skill. There's so many things that we have to master, and so that's my question. I don't know. I don't have an answer to it, but it's like, do we have to hustle that hard in the beginning to get to a place where we can balance?
I think well, you know what? I'm coming with the philosophy of like sprints. It's just like our video shoot where it's like, you know what? If you're gonna work, like be there, be present, get a lot done. Like, plan it out, like make it every second count. And then that one thing you do, for content production, you could have that stretch that over 6 months. And so now instead of sort of doing some content and doing like a 1 hour shoot per week to get like the week's content, now you just have everything and it's super consistent, which looks way more professional. And if you apply that to both work and play, if you're home at the end of the day and you said I'm going to be with my family, then be with your family. Don't treat it
Yeah.
as recovery for more work tomorrow. It's
The
hard though.
I didn't feel like when we were doing that production day, I didn't feel like it was overwork by any means.
Mhm.
I felt like it was incredibly efficient and productive. And I always think now, like you've actually like when I said you've taught me the most, I now think like what would Mark do? So we're like doing a shoot, and I'm like, it's kind of like Ed Milet. Ed Milet, and he's big on like the one more thing,
Yeah.
one more thing. I'm always like, Mark would probably fit in one more video, one more take, so I'm just challenging myself to get more. We've all came down there. We've all set up the equipment. We've all worked on preparing. We might as well be efficient and productive while we're there. Little sprint. I like the
Yeah.
sprint
Yeah, just get it
analogy.
done. Be there and tell your team the same thing. Because a lot of times, if you set that like, oh, it's casual and we're kind of playing around and we'll get some stuff, whatever, then they're gonna have that same attitude. So I think it is driven by the person in charge, of course.
Yeah.
But if you set that expectation, like, yeah, it's gonna be super hard, but you know what? Tomorrow, take a day off, or hey, we're gonna
Yeah.
do all this work this week, and then we won't have to do this again for like 6 weeks. So I
Yeah.
think it's not bad.
It's funny because you just said to it, you just said it. You're like, this is what I'm used to. This is how we produce like a content schedule. You almost need like the Gordon Ramsay like uh or Kitchen Nightmares or Bar Rescue, like one of those shows where you just go into someone's like content
Oh
production
yeah.
day and like roast them. Because we would be those newbies like, okay, yeah, are we ready with the next script? And it's just kind of like slow moving, but yours was like efficient, get things done. I feel like you could add a lot of value giving kind of feedback to people and how they produce content.
Yeah, well, if you it's just about getting it done. And actually, I'll give you another example. I just shot 40 course videos in 3 days, and I wrote a lot of the scripts while I was on set. But that's and so now, with AI, like everything that we did before, even like the search that I produced for digital marketer, like, man, that took me probably 100 to 200 hours per cert. And it was just grind and then grind and then grind. I was some of those days I was up till 2 a.m. and it was just me. I go over, like turn on the camera. Okay. I walk over to the desk and then I'd like do something. And then I realized I wasn't recording my screen and then I have to do it again. And it was just me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was too much. So it's all about balance, because for me, like, it's the perfectionism and this kind of like ego things that you have where you're like, well, I
Mhm.
could do it better, so I should do it. Now I'm the exact opposite, where I'm like, you know what, not only can somebody probably do it better, but I shouldn't be doing this. It's not my core competency, and it's probably a core competency of somebody else. so
Yeah.
so for you, with your, because I know you have how many people are on your team now?
We have like 40, above 40
Wow.
people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that. How did you get about kind of letting go of tasks that you originally owned?
I almost like it was really resonating what you just said, where you see something and you're like, oh, but I could do it better. And it actually takes me way back to the first person I hired.
Mm.
This is when I learned to let go of the reins. And it was like, because I started off in 2011, and I had my own roster of freelance clients. And it was a friend of mine. I was going to Las Vegas to like this social media conference. I thought it was like so cool. I was like in my like mid to late 20s at this
Oh,
time. So I'm like, we're gonna go to the social media conference, learn so much. And my friend is like, hey, while you're gone, why don't you hire me to manage all the work for your clients? And I'm
ooh.
thinking to myself, like, terrified, because it's your clients. What your duty to your client is to protect them, to make sure they're looked after. And I'm thinking, I know I was going above and beyond and committing to the role. Will someone else? And
Mm.
I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about hiring people. I don't know anything about anything. But I decided to give my friend a shot. And when I came back and reviewed all the content he had produced, I realized he did it better than what I was doing.
That's awesome. So
And
cool.
so that's when I learned that it's like, okay, I don't need to be the best at 300 skills in my business. There's probably experts and specialists who are better at me than this individual thing. And you kind of got to stay out of their way too.
Yes. You have to let them screw up a little bit, at least. And you can't come down on them with the hammer when they do screw up, because that's like the easiest way to make sure that they never help you again.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Just give them the own like autonomy to do it themselves and kind of learn. I believe in that. That's a good leadership style. I do remember, my business partner Simon, who was
Oh yeah.
with me, and we filmed the e-commerce cert and everything. I remember when I was just starting to partner with Simon, it was like 2014, and we didn't know what both of us would do in the business. It's like two entrepreneurs. What is each of them going to do? Or is it like a shared CEO role? And I remember just like trying to figure out that dynamic. And one day he just said to me, he's like, "You're really good at like the sales, marketing, the front man kind of thing." He's like, "Why don't you just go do that? And I'm going to take over the operations. But the rule is you can't touch anything."
Mm. Oh, that's huge.
And I was like, I don't know if I was offended or excited. Like, I'm like, is this a gift or is this like a penalty? But it turned out I stayed out of everything. And to this day, I am not involved in any client projects because Simon has taken that off my shoulders and it actually worked out for me. So I think it's a good thing to kind of
Man,
trust the right people.
that's a great story because I think it's that's the hard part is not just saying, "Oh, I'm going to delegate this task," but you're going to delegate it and trust the person to do it. And they own the thing because that's usually how the worst way to delegate is to say, "Hey, I need you to do this, but you better not screw this up." And I'm going to be checking you and I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and for employees or say lower level employees that are just executing processes, like you sort of have to be like that. But if you're giving somebody a responsibility, like, hey, here's the job, I need you to do the job, then not giving it away completely will just, it's bad for both parties because that person is
Yeah.
going to feel like you gave me this job, but you didn't really trust me. And then you're going to feel like, oh, I gave away that job and I shouldn't have because I'm better at it. And it's hard, but I will say it doesn't always work, right? Have you ever done
Yeah.
that and then the person doesn't do the job?
Yeah, it's you got to have trust in competencies. So there's got to be like a demonstrated track record of being able to deliver on a project, which seems obvious, but as long as they have that, under their belt, you do have to let go. There is a slight little bit of risk. You got to just kind of say, "This is yours. I'm going to stay out of it." And most of the time, as long as you're pretty good at vetting how you're doing that, it usually turns out great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then for me, it's and that giveaway that you did, I've never been that good at social, right? I'm very inconsistent. I'm very good at making content, but when it comes to like sharing the content, I'm like, uh, I don't have time for that. So when I finally my content got or my social got better, I just said, hey, Cameron at the time, I was like, Cameron, I'm just going to give you a pile of content. I need you to share the content and don't tell me what you're doing because I'll want to change things and I want to like, oh, I will strategize this. I'm like, no, just get it done. I don't care. I'm not going to look at it. And that actually worked out really well because then I wasn't, you know, killing myself all the time
I think
trying
it's
to
more
check up on it.
probably more exciting for her too. It's like he just gave me the full reins to be creative with how I tackle this job, but it's my job, it's my duty, it's my responsibility, it's my baby. And instead of being like, here's this exciting opportunity, but I'm going to dictate exactly how you work on it.
Yes. And that's a surefire way to just make everybody frustrated. You won't get the result you want. But let's talk about just why that happens. Because for me, now I look at it, I'm kind of like, man, that's so selfish, where not only did you tell this person they had this awesome opportunity and job, you took it away, basically, or you never gave it fully and now everybody feels bad about it. But that's a really difficult thing. So what do you think what skills, like interpersonal skills, can somebody develop to feel good about that process of empowering somebody else with a responsibility that really matters to you, but it's scary?
Read the book Leaders Eat Last
Ah,
by Simon Sinek. I think I've kind of always had that philosophy where I do try to be a good leader and look out for like the success of my team before my own immediate needs kind of thing. So
that
I don't
makes
know. I think I've actually innately been kind of always good at that because I do get really obsessive about a project when I'm working on it, but I know that if I'm not, I can just like pretend it doesn't exist. I could do that.
mm,
I could do that. So just going back to like the leaders eat last thing, I think it's just like you hire these people, you believe in them, they have a good track record. So my job is to like grow my people and try and like it's less about me controlling their project and
mm,
more about growing them, providing them with resources. So I would like serve my team member. What do you
yeah.
need? How's it going? You let me know what you need from me to help this go successful. So I'm not telling you, but I'm leaving it open. I'll be here. If it's 2 a.m. and you're pressing record and you're Mark all by himself and you need me to drive down, I will drive down at 2 a.m. and help you. So
Oh,
that's
that's
like the
awesome.
level of support I'm offering, and it's very clear that I'm doing that. And I do check in. Hey, let me know if you're drowning. So it's little checkpoints, but it's like I'm serving you, not the project or the result. I am serving you.
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy. your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
Oh, that's a great perspective. And it's empowering for the person and makes them feel not alone. That's probably the best way to put it. Because a lot of times
Yeah.
when people think they're ready for that responsibility, but once they get it, it's like scary for everybody, right?
Okay, so that is the story of my life when it comes to my experience with staff. It's like
Mm.
they want the director title. They want this title. It's like, okay, title's cool, but be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Because with great titles comes great responsibility.
Now, how do you tell people? Because I think it's like telling people, somebody who doesn't have a kid, what having a kid is like. Like they could be like, "Oh, I babysat before, and I know what having a kid's like." It's like, no, you don't. You have no idea what this is like. How do you communicate that to somebody, especially, I hate to say it, younger people who think that, anybody could do the boss's job. That guy's just sitting in his office talking to people. Do you have a way of I don't know, informing them of just how difficult the job might be?
Okay, so I think yes, and this has come up so many times where and there's a couple of times where I did make that promotion, and like overnight it was like, whoa, this is
That was
more
bad.
than I had ever wished for, right? but but I think it goes back to I think like that trust factor. Like you have to have like genuine trust in the relationship, see that they're competent. If those things add up on paper, it's like competent work experience. You've done well in the past. You've
Mm.
demonstrated growth. Then I think you just have to understand that there's going to be mistakes. So I'm okay with mistakes. I think that's all opportunity to grow. It's when those same mistakes keep happening that
Uh,
you would have a problem, right? So I'm very clear about that when I'm doing that type of promotion. I'll say, hey, listen, like this job is about to get like infinitely more serious because now you are not taking orders. You are like the order giver. You are the strategist. You are the person leading the charge on this. So get ready to have that learning curve come into effect where I will give you some training wheels for a little period, but then I'm just gonna disappear. And then I just say like it's gonna be a lot of work. There are gonna be mistakes, but it goes back to just saying I am in your corner. I don't want them to feel like scared, nervous, embarrassed to ask for help. I want them to feel like natural, comfortable. It's
mm,
okay to make mistakes. Scott told me that. He's helping me. And then I'm not even kidding about this. I always tell them I am your new like assistant. I am your
uh,
new low level employee. You just tell me whatever you need done and I will like write copy. I will set up a product page. I will do like whatever the low level thing is to just help get that capacity off your plate.
I love that. Yeah, serving is the
Serving.
name of the game. And
Yeah.
and why wouldn't you? It goes back to, I always talk about parenting on the show a lot too, where it's like, you want your kid to do something right. You gotta exemplify it yourself. And then you gotta remind them without making it, too harsh so that they
Much
they
of a
resent,
lecture.
yeah, resent the responsibility. Like, oh, if I knew it was gonna be like this, then I wouldn't have done this.
Yeah. So there's a funny story. There's a personal story. It's like a really close friend of mine. I just turned 40 in December, so a few months
Ah,
ago.
congrats.
Yes, and I have like a 5-year-old daughter, so I'm kind of used to the parenting and all that. But he just turned 40 and he just had his first child, so
Ah,
he's new to it, but he's like adapting. And he on like the second Saturday after his son was born, he went golfing with like the guys.
mm.
And I was like, okay, this is totally a newbie, like a
Yeah,
brand new
it's
dad.
fine. The baby's
Yeah,
sleeping.
yeah. And then another friend of mine who doesn't have kids chimes in, "Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that." Like, and he has the wrong argument.
Yeah.
He's like, the a good partner, a good wife would like let you go do that. I'm like, it's not that's not what it's about.
Yes. That,
It's not even about serving your partner. It's about like as a unit, as a family, we got to like preserve our energy. We got to preserve when we sleep. We got to choose our battles. We got to choose how we spend
mm,
our spare time. So I just felt like he's going to learn a lot from like losing sleep and choosing these things and like looking out for one another. So,
mm.
but to your point, somebody who didn't have a kid would never even know what the conversation was really about.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, it's just a baby. Who cares? And it's just like, ah, no, it's way, way deeper than that.
It's
And
just a baby. Yeah,
even the show, well, because well, especially with having kids, it's like, I think everybody doesn't quite understand the impact it has on the woman that had to do this thing, this super difficult, strenuous, emotional, physiological, like this event that happened that's super taxing on the body. And just as a person who went through something, I'm not saying traumatic because having a baby is amazing, but physically very, very, very difficult. You need to
absolutely.
be you need to be understanding with that. And even if she says, and this is, if it's an older couple, like usually they're more verbal or know themselves better, so they're able to communicate better. But younger people, yeah, younger wife might be like, oh, of course, go, have fun. And she might not actually mean it. And
Or
it's
no, like she has
or
a good
no, yeah.
intention, right? She's a good intention. Yeah, you got to do
Yeah.
your things, but then there is an impact. It is taxing. It is exhausting. So it's less about like my wife said I can or can't go golfing. It's more just being considerate about how that's going to drain everyone else if neglect other needs.
Yes. No, and that's a good way to put it because I think it's even if somebody's not willing or not able to voice that sentiment, you should still care about what they're probably thinking. And that's been tricky for me because I was never good at reading people. And so I was always wildly confused about what the hell was happening. And I'm like, well, the person said this, so I don't get it. Why do they have a problem now? Instead of just looking at the situation objectively and being like, oh, this is a pretty obvious answer here.
In all fairness to both my friends, the guy who went golfing and the guy who thought it was crazy that he couldn't go golfing, I learned through trial and error too. So I already made the mistakes.
Yeah, well, and that's part of experience, right? Because yeah, you could say and people could say these things and not actually mean it or intend something else based on the situation. I think what I've actually improved on a lot is just the gut feel when I'm like, they're saying this, but it doesn't quite feel right. And
Yeah.
and it's basically up to me to make the choice because they said either way. And so, I could do the thing that I want to do, but I know this is the more equitable decision. And so if you just feel that, just go with the equitable decision
Yeah.
just in case.
Maybe a quick little clarifying question. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I was going to do this, but it made more sense to this. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Thanks, Mark. That was really considerate.
Yeah. But again, this is the interpersonal relationships that happen outside of business. Like, in business we know because we have contracts and there's deliverables and there's things that factually have to happen for us to both be happy with the
Yeah.
situation. But
Yeah.
when you talk about significant others or your kids or friends or church members that you go to church with, like there's a different set of rules. And most of it comes back to that emotional impact, which is tricky. So let's talk about that real quick, just in terms of how your relationships develop outside of business versus inside of business, or do you do both the same way?
Yeah, I think when I'm developed, like, I mean, business relationships are always exciting because when you're an entrepreneur and you have this big vision and it
Oh,
motivates you and it brings you all this excitement and that's like all you want to talk about, right? So then you find other entrepreneurs and you network with them and we're all talking about the same thing. So I've found actually in the last 7 years that most of the relationships that I like new relationships or relations I've been developing are with other entrepreneurs,
mm,
again, masterminds and coaching programs at conferences, all that kind of stuff. But outside of work, like you make friends with other new parents, and so
mm. Oh yeah,
you're
that's a big part of it.
so that's like an exciting thing. But I also feel like it's like we have these set of circumstances. Our kids may be playing like there's not that same like excitement to become friends with these people because something you
Mm,
have in common. It's more like this is a civilized thing to do. This is what parents do. We get together. We hope our kids become friends. And so I feel like we're following a little bit more of like a community playbook
uh,
instead of just our innate selfish intrigue and vision and desire. So I find, just to recap that, I find like it's easy to develop relationships in the work and like anything to do with business because everybody's passionate. We all connect on that. And
mm,
outside, it's kind of like a little bit more of a duty. But I have found myself making a solid effort to like re-nurture existing friendships. So as I chase like the passionate friendships, I noticed that some of like the true, genuine, authentic relationships I've had for years get neglected.
Hmm.
So that's one of the things I've been really trying to do in the last couple of years is just be more present with friendships I've had for a long time.
Oh, that's really good. Because that, and you know, just this goes back to the hustle, which was at the beginning of the episode. You could really disregard those when you're trying to make it, right? Like, and I had to really adjust myself because when I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm judging everybody by the opportunity potential of knowing them. Like, and it's a very California thing to do. I've actually realized that after being away from California and going back, I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's prospecting all the time and you don't know what it's for. It might not be for a specific reason, but it's always like, how is this going to benefit my long-term business plans to know
Connection.
this person and to
Yeah,
be friends with this person? And that's a terrible way to develop relationships.
that's
And
interesting.
so, well, since I stopped doing that, I just kind of say like, hey, you're neat. And that's kind of my qualification. And there's
That's
nothing
kind of
else.
cool. Like this is why I like those long-term friendships because when I became friends with a lot of people in my 20s, even before that, like there's a few people I'm still really close with before my 20s. But it was just more about interests. Like where do you like to go on vacation? Where do you like to travel? What kind of music do you listen to? What sports teams do you like? Like it's just more about interests, shared
Mm.
interests. There's no hidden agenda with that kind of friendship. So that's why I kind of been cherishing those a little bit more.
Mm.
There's no cloudiness, there's no prospecting with those.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, hey, we know each other and we've been through a lot and we've known each other for a while and you know me and I know you. And so it actually makes it a lot easier to open up because then you're like, oh, I don't need to explain why I'm like this. Like, you know why I'm like this.
You could be so
And
authentic. You could be so authentic. Like I was hanging out with a whole bunch of friends over the Christmas holidays because a lot of people moved away. They're all back home for the holidays. They came back
Mm.
from Toronto and California and wherever. And I was just like, wow, I feel so comfortable with this group because it's like there's no hidden agenda. It's just like you said, you know me, you know why I'm this way. I can open up more.
Yes. Well, and then the other side that I think really helped was just being present in like right now, where I'm like, because I think a lot of times people put happiness and they put success and they put everything as like this goal on this mountain in the distance. Like, oh, once I go through all this stuff, I'll be happy. Or once I go through all this stuff, I'll be satisfied. And then, you know, the more I realize I'm like, no, I could be happy right now. Tell me a joke. I'm going to be happy right now. And that's all it has to be. Like just this.
Oh, if you're always putting happiness off till later, it like will never arrive.
No,
I
the
like that.
future never happens. Like it's just your ideas about what might happen. You know, I actually realized I was doing that with like, I do it with because I take a million pictures of my kids, right? Well, I take a million pictures of everything. My phone is just packed. But when I started doing it, it was because I thought like, man, I don't want to be, you know, 60 or 70 and want to see what my, you know, this time was like when my kids were this age. And so I better take these pictures so I don't regret it in 30 years. And now I think that's kind of dumb. Like what, you know, I'm never gonna stop doing that because I love doing it. I just love taking pictures. So I don't have to worry about that. But the thought process
Content guy.
behind it,
Content guy.
yeah, the thought process about it was like, oh my gosh, why would I be guilty for something that probably is never gonna happen? Or what who knows 30 years from now? Who gives a crap? Like
Yeah.
right now matters.
I like that making the choice. I can choose to just not think about the future or the past and just be present and appreciate it.
Right now.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
And that's you know, it's tricky because it is because basically what you have to do is you have to stop worrying. You have to stop projecting. You have to stop planning. You have to stop all this stuff and then just make decisions right now and just be right now and whatever emotion you feel like you want to feel like try to make it happen right now because why the heck not? That future version of you, he'll get his crap figured out, right? Like or
Yeah.
not.
There's like
But that's not your responsibility.
I feel like there's a thing you could do to get more intentional with the
Mm,
present moment. Meditation.
yes.
And that's actually something I've wanted to doubt. Like I don't want to just like loosely do it. If like I'm very interested in doing it and I want to build a habit of doing it.
Mm.
So it's been on my mind like last little while. I don't have a game plan yet, but if I meet the right person who gets
I'll
me
give you a
started,
game plan.
Yeah. Do you do
Oh
meditation?
yeah, I meditate
Look
constantly.
at this. Look at this live. We got us.
Well, you know what's funny? I just thought about this. I took a break from work and I went outside and I'm just like, I'm just gonna sit in the sun and meditate. And I was thinking, like, man, I really should just make an article series just about all this crap that I did over the last 3, 4 years to kind of, transform myself. And this totally fits with that. So my first article is going to be how to start meditating because
Okay. Look at this.
it's
I
actually
found
not
the
very
guy.
well, it's not hard, but it's exactly what we're talking about. Like, how do you get in the present moment? And so with meditation, you could do, there's a million different techniques, and it's just like anything. Like the only technique that works, or the right technique, is the one that works for you. And there's no other technique than that. So you don't have to stress about whether you're doing it right or not. You just have to experiment. And so I use the everything method, I call it, where it's, start, sit in a quiet place, take a few deep breaths, and I'm not going to get into breath work because that's a whole another story, but examine your body. Think of how your toes feel right now and just really try to examine like how your toes feel, and then move up to your feet, and then move up to your ankles, and then move up to your shins, and then move up to your knees. And you literally go head to toe. You do a check-in with these different parts of your body to see how they're feeling. And during that process, you can't be anything other than present, which is thinking about everything, but actually thinking about nothing and just being in the moment. So that's one method. Another method is the nothing method, where you try to think about absolutely nothing and essentially just focus on the back of your eyelids and see how long you can do that without a thought crossing your mind. Now, there's a hack for this one, which is you close your eyes and you think, I wonder what my next thought will be. And if you do that, you'll actually find that there's nothing there, because your mind is essentially in this feedback loop of trying to think about what the next thought's going to be. And so there's absolutely nothing there. And it's scary for people because they're like, nothing happened. It's like, yeah, that's the point. You have to sit in there. You have to sit in that nothing, and then things will happen. Now, there are cheats for it where you get into the breath work, and breath work is actually just the ultimate like meditation cheat, because literally you'll go other places if you do it right, where you'll be kind of basically not present at
Like out
all.
of your body.
Oh yeah. Like you'll basically wake up. Like I've done it before where I actually I did it. Sometimes I do it a lot before I go to sleep. And so I was in a hotel in Miami and I was doing my breath work, and then I came back into to me, and I was like, oh crap, am I at home or somewhere else? And I had
Yeah.
forgotten, and it's not long, it's like 10 seconds or something, but you forget where you are. And so that's how you know that you did nothing right. And there's other techniques like staring at a candle. So anyway, I'll put together an article. But yeah,
I
get
can't wait
into
for
it.
that.
Well, and just
I
start
did.
doing it.
Well,
That's
so there was like I got a gift. It was from my wife. It was for those zero gravity chamber.
oh yeah, yeah.
It's the saltwater one.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
the
you go
float
into the
tanks.
saltwater pod, and I did that once, and I did the nothing method. I was like, try and think
Nice.
about nothing. Like I didn't know that there was a method. I didn't know there was a name, but I was like, let's just try and not think about anything. And it was just I actually felt like a release coming out of that little bath. I was only in there for half an hour. I went back and bought a monthly pass, and I went a few times, and then I ended up moving, and it's not even close to where I live now. So I haven't gone in a while, but I got to experience meditation there, and I felt the benefit. So
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm going to read that article. I just need little baby steps to start getting into it, build that habit. And in a year from now, I'm going to share my
You'll be
breath stories
amazed.
with you.
Well, what you'll start to realize is that the connection with the breath is there for a reason. Like the reason why everybody's like breathe deep, and and it just is related to everything that you do. And so, and what happens is, because they say like, okay, if you find thoughts that cross your mind, start thinking about your breath, think about the air going in and out. And if you do it for long enough, and this took me probably like a year of doing it, now I automatically go to the breath, where it's just like, okay, I need to focus, or I need to get rid of my current thought process. And then you just go back to the breath, and it's not something you're like, I'm going back to the breath right now. It's just, you just do it. And then you're good to go. So yes, you should definitely do it. and don't try too hard. It's kind of hard to tell people that because they're like, I'm gonna be good at meditating. And it's like,
Well, that's
nah.
it's intimidating feeling like that. And I do feel like that. I'm like, I gotta give it my all. I gotta be 100% at this.
Oh, and I was like that for the longest time. And I was like, oh, I really want to have an out of body experience. Like, how do I let me review all the data on out of body experiences? Let me listen to all the stuff about blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, man, that's not the point. Like, you know, that'll happen eventually, but that's not the point. The point is to get out of your head. And that means that means a million different things to different people. So
Right now, like I do feel that if I'm like, so I don't have meditation in my routine at all right now, which I want to do. But if I feel like my thought process, like not stopping,
mhm.
it's just perpetual motion. And I'm like, I got to shut off my mind. I got to do something. Running. And I know you're a runner too. Running has been my thing. And
Oh
I know there's
yeah,
a lot
that
of
helps.
breathing while you're running. So maybe there's some similarities.
Oh, yeah. Actually, there's a huge connection between because I always wonder because I was in the fitness industry for like 10 years, and these people who some of them were not smart, I would say would be the best way to put it, but they were enlightened. And I was just like, man, how do they have all this energy and how do they have all this stuff going for them? Well, but not making any money. It had nothing to do with money or success. But they all seem to have like a mindset and a drive and energy. And I was like, man, how did they do this? And it's through exercise because the exercise is the breathing. The exercise is the pain. You know, I talk about cold dipping, and the reason why cold dipping works is the pain. It's not, oh, it was so tough and I made it through it. It was like, no, I was sitting in pain for 10 minutes. And if you're sitting in pain, you can't be anywhere else because you're in pain. And so,
Yeah.
but it's voluntary. And once you get to controlling it, then you could eventually like it. But the whole point of it is to get out of your head. You're getting into your body because your body thinks it's dying. And so that's the point.
That's a welcoming invite for anybody who's never tried.
Well, but that's it. And that's the hardest part for people where it's just like, you know, you want enlightenment, right? And you think that enlightenment, I thought enlightenment, you know, an awakening, I thought it was all peace. Like, oh, you'll just be at peace. You'll be able to accept everything. And that's what enlightenment is. And then I got into it and I was like, oh crap, no, I'm super sensitive now to everything. And now everything hurts. And I realize everything happening and everything's hard. Yeah. And so then you got to learn how to control that factor. And then you find out that there's levels to everything and that you just got to level one. And you're like, oh no. And then there's a lot more places to go. So yeah, you need to start doing meditation. And the sooner you do it, the better, because your whole life, I mean, for me, my whole life changed and it took a bunch of stuff to do, but the meditation is just foundational.
I love it. I'm gonna do it. This has been an enlightening conversation, Mark, and I'm honestly gonna try and make the right step. I'm gonna wait for your article. No,
I'm gonna put. I'll produce it after this. I'll
okay.
send it out
Maybe
today.
I'm putting too much pressure already. I gotta wait for the article, Mark. It's on you now to start my habits.
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what to do tonight. Okay, here's
Okay.
what you do: get in a dark room, relax, get comfortable, light one candle, and all you're gonna do is stare at the candle, stare at the way it moves, stare at it flickering, stare at just what it's doing, and just do that for 10 minutes. That's it. That's all you have to do.
I can do this.
Yes, and
I
that's
can do
it.
that. I feel like one of the things you said just resonated too. Like if you don't run for like if you're an avid runner and then you don't run for like 3 months for whatever reason, like I had a broken foot, had to get back into running after. It's like I'm like, oh, I'm so good at running. I could do 10K no problem. Like 10K, that's like easy. I know you guys are miles out there in the US, but 10K, that's no problem. And then you go run and then you're like you're just like you can't breathe after like 2 kilometers
Oh,
because you have to like rebuild that skill. And then there's things in my mind like I'm like, do I need to stop running right now? Like, should I just stop at 2 kilometers? Like, I can't do this. And you push yourself through it. Just each time it gets better and better, right?
yeah. Well, but you want to reach the well, and actually you're in a good place at that point because now you're able to exhaust yourself way faster. So I treat it as a form of efficiency. Yeah, you're out of shape. And yeah, you were in better shape. But when you were in better shape, in order to get to that same level of exhaustion, it would take you 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers,
20.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, yeah, and that's why I like sprinting now. I basically only run 1 mile when I work out, but I increase the pace every 0.15 miles. And so I end up doing like 10 miles an hour by the end. And so I'm
Cool.
running like a 7:30, mile, and that's my warm up. And then I'm like good to go. And I haven't ran like longer than that. I'm actually not a runner. I just did the marathon because Actually, that was part of my journey. That's actually part of the beginning of my journey was I think my therapist told me, she's like, you need to do something alone. And I was like, oh, well, I can't do anything alone, but I could run alone. I have to run alone. And so I signed up for a marathon. I hadn't been running at all for 10
Okay,
years.
yeah. Now I'm associating you as this like pro runner because
I'm
when we were out
pretty-
in Austin, you were training for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, and even then I only ran, I think maybe 20 miles a week. And my longest run was like 10 miles. And then but I made a system and I said, I'm only going to do a 10-minute mile. Like that's my time, or 10:30. And I'm just going to stick to that, even if I feel good. And so that actually worked. But yeah, now it's all try, you just got to keep going, keep
Yeah.
doing stuff, and eventually you'll figure it out, or you'll just keep doing stuff. You never actually fail as long as you just keep going. So
Keep growing. Growth.
growth, yes. And just trying, just do stuff, take action.
I like that.
That's the point. Well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been super fun. I don't know how we got to meditation and running, but that usually happens on the show. So thank you so much. Well, I'll be back on soon. We'll get
Mark, so awesome seeing you, man. No, this is hey, it's just it's a reminder, just to like kind of like I don't need to intimidate myself into not meditating. I just need to take one little step, make it approachable, don't build too much pressure around it, and away we go. That's kind of how you get better at everything.
Yeah. Well, and don't try. That's the trick. And that's the hardest part, because we're doers, right? Like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it to the limit, or I'm gonna do as best as I can immediately. It's like, no, no, you suck. Just don't think about it too much.
Yeah, dig it. Awesome, Mark. So awesome catching up, man.
Yes. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, I got a little Instagram handle, Scott John Cunningham. I kind of just been sharing my personal Instagram,
Nice.
connecting with people there. We do have merchantmastery.io as our website. We help Shopify stores, but want to reach out and talk about meditation or running or something philosophical, you got my Instagram handle, Scott John Cunningham.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And thank you for the inspiration. I think, things align. It's weird, but yeah, I was totally thinking about writing articles about self-development today. And so I'm going to write that tonight. I'll send it to you. And then I challenge you to, take it on, because, the more you do it, the better it gets. And I'll give you the cheat too, which is breath work. And I'll give you my link to the guy I use. It's called Breathe with Sandy. He's on YouTube.
Man, this could be a pivotal moment in my year right now.
Oh,
I'm
you just
I'm
wait.
gonna do the candle thing tonight. I'm gonna read
Well,
the article tomorrow.
Yeah, and then I'll send you like an 8-minute breath work routine, and you'll just be like, it'll work. It'll be
Man,
awesome.
I'm gonna do those things, all the things you just said. I'm gonna do the candle. I'm gonna read the article, and I'm gonna do the 8-minute breathing routine once I see it.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna have you back on in 3 months. I'm gonna quiz you, and we'll see if you did it or not.
I'll be pro by then.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
Okay, cheers, Mark. Awesome seeing you. See you again.
And thank you so much for listening. This has been Podcast Mark, where we talk about personal development, professional development, and business development in that order. So for more content like that, come on back.